guys, now before I get started on this review, I just want to say that I haven't been uploading in a couple of weeks, and I had a few other horror movies to do for Horror Movie Month. I don't know if I can cover that now, but it's mainly because I've been busy moving and stuff like that. I moved apartments, and now I'm in my new apartment, and yeah, I've just been busy for the last couple of weeks. And my last review I uploaded was Christine for Horror Movie Month. And that's all really what I wanted to go through before I started this review. Because seriously, last night was like a very, very fun night. I was tired when I came back, and I honestly wanted to do a review of this movie once I got back, but I was really tired. But now I have the energy to talk about this film because I have a lot to say about Doctor Sleep. I really do have a lot to say about Doctor Sleep. Let's start this review. Doctor Sleep is the sequel to the book and the film The Shining, which just so happens to be my favorite horror movie of all time. I absolutely love The Shining because it's psychological, and it's one of those films that has multiple interpretations. It has breathtaking cinematography, and the acting in that film is phenomenal. Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, Danny Lloyd, Scatman Crothers, everyone in that film does an excellent job, and I was really, really craving to see this movie. Check this out. I made this, the Red Rum Door. It's amazing. It really is. And I really do have a lot to say about Doctor Sleep. Let's start talking about this film. So, Doctor Sleep tells the story of Danny Torrance, who is now an adult and has moved on with his life after his tragic experience from the Overlook Hotel when he was a kid. He now takes care of hospital patients, or he comforts hospital patients. And through that time, Danny comes in contact with this girl known as Abra, who has the ability that he has called The Shining. And there's this cult of people who feed off of people who have The Shining. And these people are going after Abra to kill her, and Danny has to do his best to protect this little girl. This was one of, if not my most anticipated film of the year. Like I already said, and like I already stated, and I will state it again, The Shining is my favorite horror film of all time, and there are many reasons why I find The Shining an important film. It has multiple interpretations, and it's very unique. It's unlike any other horror film. And it's something that cannot be recreated in cinema. And Stanley Kubrick was the perfect director to deliver his own vision into Stephen King's story, even if Stephen King didn't like The Shining. Doctor Sleep is the best horror film of the year. Oh my god, there is so much I have to say about this movie because I walked out of this film in so much positivity. I have to say that I freaking love this movie. I have to be completely honest when I say this too. This, in my opinion, is the best horror film of the year. Not Child's Play, not Us, not even It Chapter 2. I think the gold goes to this film. I freaking loved this film. Doctor Sleep is a perfect blend from both Stephen King's The Shining and Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. This movie both pleases fans of Stephen King's book and Stanley Kubrick's film. And that's what I absolutely loved about it. It wasn't necessarily focusing on one thing. And yes, people can call this a sequel to Stanley Kubrick's film because, like I already said, this film even pleases Stanley Kubrick's The Shining because that film is so influential. And I think no other director other than Mike Flanagan could have done this better. Mike Flanagan today is really well known in the horror genre, and I hope he really does get more recognized. Come on, the guy has made stuff like An American Horror Story, for God's sake. So he was obviously the right man to be behind the camera in this film. The cinematography in this film looks absolutely immaculate. The shots and the editing are really well done. And they're on screen for the right amount of time, and we get and we get to know every character in this film, even Danny, a lot more. Ewan McGregor absolutely did a great job in this film. Really loved him as Danny. We really do get a lot more invested into Danny than in The Shining, and we loved him in The Shining because of the ability he had, and he was such a really, really interesting kid. And in this film, we get to know a lot more about Danny. And it was seriously a giant breath of fresh air. The supernatural and sinister elements in this film were really dark. I thought it were even darker than they were in the Dr. Sleep book. And it was because Mike Flanagan really does have a great vision behind the camera. He really does know how to direct a movie. Another thing that Dr. Sleep gets right is amazing characters. This film is filled with lovable characters that you can easily engage with. Kylie Curran, who plays as Abra in this film, really excellent job. Definitely one of the best child actor performances I've seen in 2019. She really deserves the amount of praise in this film because she is actually that good. And knowing that she has the same ability as Danny, and Danny has to protect Abra because the True Knot are coming after her, you actually feel for Abra. You feel for her character. And Kylie really does a fantastic job. I was blown away by her performance. And I really would love to see this girl in more horror films, in more films in general, because she deserves it. In regards to the villains, Rebecca Ferguson carries this entire film. She does an amazing job as Rose the Hat, and her character is honestly a lot darker in this film than the Dr. Sleep book. And you'd know once you read the book and see the movie, but that's mainly because of Mike Flanagan's vision, and I thought that was really well handled. And the performances all around in the cult of the True Knot are really phenomenal, but Rebecca Ferguson really carries the entire thing. Dr. Sleep is a film that's filled with so many surprises and so many great characters and a really excellent story and so many nostalgia moments. I've had a lot of nostalgia moments in this film. Just when the Warner Brothers logo showed up and the theme song from The Shining was playing, that absolutely gave me chills. Absolute chills. And it was amazing. A really amazing feeling. Especially the third act of Dr. Sleep. Once the third act kicks in, everything looks familiar that was in Stanley Kubrick's film. And the nostalgia just bursts out of the roof. And it's amazing. It's absolutely great. Honestly, if I were to compare this movie to The Shining, and I know this seems a little unfair considering this is a new film, I honestly do think that Dr. Sleep is not better than The Shining. It really isn't. But it is a very highly worthy sequel. I think it's nearly as good as The Shining. But in the future, I could see this movie becoming an influential horror film. But if I'm going to be completely honest, this movie is nearly as good as The Shining. My really only complaint, and this is not even a flaw, this isn't going to hurt my actual grade that I'm going to give the film, it's more of a nitpick. And I say this movie is nearly as good as The Shining because The Shining, I didn't have any flaws or nitpicks with it. This film, I just really have one nitpick with it. But I wouldn't necessarily say this is one of the best horror movies ever, but I would say this is a worthy sequel to The Shining, and probably one of the best horror movies of the 2010s. But my really only complaint with this movie, and this is only really a nitpick, I'd say, it's not really a big complaint, it sort of involves Abra and her abilities and some new abilities, and they don't really get explained on how they happen. And I wouldn't really say that's a big nitpick, because what actually unfolds with her new abilities, it's pretty sick. It's pretty sick. It's just that I feel like the film could have done a little more analyzing, and it's not even just a flaw. If it was a flaw, I would completely have a problem with that, but I don't necessarily hate that she has I don't necessarily hate that she has her new powers, those new powers of The Shining, because I honestly think those are really cool stuff. I just wish we knew how she got those. And I guess from other perspectives, I guess it's you shouldn't really know. That's why I didn't necessarily consider this as a flaw. I'm not gonna lower the grade for this movie at all. Doctor Sleep is a movie that freaking surprised the living hell out of me. I love this movie. I love this movie, and it's a very unique movie. It's one of the better horror films I've seen in a while, honestly. And it's a film that will please both Stephen King and Stanley Kubrick fans. And you can never go wrong with both. And I was worried that this film might be less good than The Shining, which is my favorite horror movie of all time. Man, was I wrong. This was a highly successful sequel to The Shining. And just by watching this film alone, you can tell that Mike Flanagan really loved working on this. He wanted to please Stephen King and Stanley Kubrick fans, and he did it. He absolutely did it. I can't wait to see what else this director does in the future, because, man, I think the horror genre might be getting back on track in modern day. We might be getting some good horror films, actually. I think the horror genre might be saved. But yeah, in other words, I had a really great time watching this movie last night. And this is easily on my top 3 favorite movies of 2019. But if you haven't guessed by now, I'm gonna give Doctor Sleep an A+. That big of a grade? Yes, to me at least. I really did think this movie was that good. Nearly as good as The Shining. But I still wouldn't consider Doctor Sleep one of the best horror movies of all time. Maybe in like 30 or 50 years, this film might get a lot more recognized. But I freaking loved the heck out of this movie, guys. Please check this out. Please go check this movie out, especially if you're just a Stephen King or just a Stanley Kubrick fan. Because Doctor Sleep was absolutely a blast. Guys, thank you guys so much for watching this review. You guys are the best. Love every single one of you. Look forward to more reviews that'll be coming very soon. And as always, if you're new here and you like what you see here, why not hit that subscribe button to join the EliB/520 community. And I will see you next time. Peace out.